Hey there, Ascension Pioneers. I wanted to talk about another subject which I was talking about in my previous video about Ascension, foods, diet. This person asked me to speak about this, and I used to speak about that in my older videos. But I noticed how I cut myself, out from the frame several times, and how the shot was very poor because I did not have my tripod. I did not bring it with me, and today I brought it. And not just because of that, I wanted to assess this from a more simple approach to just explain through simplicity of how this is truly important, how we should really look through awareness, at our feeding system, through our feeding process. So here's the thing that I would really like to say, instead of that video, which I used to talk about more about foods and, what types of food, and this is really not so important once you look at a grander picture, what is the first thing we are to receive through our consciousness? What is the first thing we are to be aware of when we are thinking about how we feed ourselves? Is that all life is energy. See, like this buzzing creature that just came here to make its statement about this. Everything is energy. So when you truly shift in awareness in this ascension process, which is actually also a descension, because we're bringing forth that highest state into our physicality, and we're grounding it. So in most cases I would prefer calling it descension, but I made a joke about this last week, and I said, how funny would it be if I said, hello dear descension pioneers? It would sound kind of funny, so I'm still sticking at the ascension pioneers. But when you think about it as such, it is truly about a descension process, and it's the same about food. The energies are shifting, and we are shifting towards the true remembrance of how we were created. And what is that causing? It's causing us to remember what was our essence here on Earth, basically, as these vehicles of light creatures, light beings, that we were to explore this physicality. So to stay, connected to Source at all times, we did not need any food supplies, because we were learning through experiencing consciousness and all creation, all living things, through our physicality. But we were physical, and at the same time we were divine. That meant that our physicality did not prevent us in a way, to fall. It did not make us fall in our awareness, because we did not need to feed off each other of a certain other particle, other creation aspect, to be whole, to be fed. It later came so, through the decrease in awareness, through the great fall, so to say. There were many such falls in civilizations, because there were many such experiments of consciousness as to how it is to survive and exist and experience in the physical, in the external, when the source is rippling out in all sorts of ways. So at the beginning we were created as vehicles of light, which meant that we only fed by liquid light through manifestation of source. And this is something that is explained very beautiful, if you wish to know more about it, in this certain chapter in the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ, because he explains this, how in the ethers, there are certain levels of, being, certain realms of existence, that you cannot just be of another realm if you're not. If you're of human origin, you're human. So every realm that existed when, there still was not this fall from our grace, every realm was fed only by that light from that etheric plane. Only that divine source fed it. It was eternally cycling. There was no need to add something to it, to take something from another, because everything was provided by source. And we used to exist in that state many eons and eons ago. And we used to experience consciousness like that, not just here on Earth. You have to remember that creation is vast, limitless. There are many worlds of outer realities that, a human can experience this kind of life, and also other forms of life, other forms of creation. So at the beginning it was like that, but then, the great fall started happening, and the experience of consciousness here in the physical used to variate. We used to kind of fall astray, and we used other resources. So man discovered other things to be fed by, to survive. And at the end, which is not an end actually, because everything has a beginning and the end, and they're the same. But where we are now in this focal period of existence is that we have become very survival, like the survival mode on. and we're feeding off other people's energy. Not just that, we're feeding with other sorts of consciousness, and this is a very low state of existence. So those who are on this path of ascension, that literally consciously through their inner awakening start asking themselves about nutrition and food, and they start realizing that this is basic prana, this is basic energy. It's not just something that you consider as your food of survival. When you know that, when you remember that, you start getting closer to your natural state of existence, your natural origin, your natural heritage, as to how you were created as a divine being of light, to experience consciousness in that way, so you don't harm or feed off another. And you start remembering, and you want to make this consciousness consciously. Consciousness changes consciously, not just by thinking, okay, it's popular to be vegetarian, or my neighbor is a vegetarian, or my best friend is a vegan, and I'll do the same because it's healthy for me. If you only consider it due to health reasons, you will miss other parts, other segments that are really important, because it's all, like I always say, it's all about the awareness. It's all about the shift in consciousness, and this is what will make you really shift in awareness. And where your shift in food as to how you feed yourself will be natural. It won't be hard, because many people are experiencing difficulties when they shift in diets, because it does not come from their heart center. It does not come from their divine remembrance. So once this divine remembrance starts occurring, all these changes that are going to happen will be like automatically, like awareness will come to you. Oh my God, why would I eat this? Because it's not aligned to my natural state. It's not a judgment whether people who eat meat are bad. It's just that they did not yet remember about this. They do not yet have that unlocked within their hearts to remember why it's not good, and why we were not created to eat meat, why a human being was not created to eat meat. And people will then say, who are not awakened enough to that natural truth that is within them, they will say, well, animals feed off each other as well. But they do not understand that even at the beginning, when there was still paradise here, animals were not eating each other either, because all forms of life, and this is explained in the gospel as well, have fallen. These forms that are human, plant lives, and animal kingdoms. But you have to know, the third dimension for a human being, you have to remember you are human. You are not an animal. You are experiencing physicality and creating as a human form, which is spirit form, but then it becomes physical, which wants to explore outer realities. You must not interchange those two. It's not the same thing. In spirit, in essence, you are of human form, and this form is becoming more and more advanced, more and more high in consciousness and awareness as to how it perceives itself and all that is, because once you know thyself, you know all that is. So you're experiencing as a human, and as a human you start remembering. And there are these levels, and the human, when you fall to the third dimension, it's like as low as you can go. And when you start shifting in awareness, when your kundalini starts rising up, when you start remembering yourself as divine love, all these things, all these shifts are are happening within you naturally. You don't have to go to outer resources and read about foods and read what's good for you, because your body will just know. Your soul will give you the guidance, and your soul will always know what changes to make, what is good for you. Because sometimes, people will be judgmental, and they will say, if you are in this enlightened path, so why do you still need food anyway? Because those who are truly enlightened don't need any food. You have to know that the world we live in is very dense, and sometimes, to exist as light, to have as much light coast that you can, and to also exist in this dense reality, it takes support. You need support. You need additional support sometimes, because there's a certain amount of light that you can have to shine in this darkness. Darkness is not something separate. It's just a lack of light. When you're transparent it, when you're making it transparent with your light, you're actually illuminating it. But sometimes this on its own will require an additional energy support. And that's where feeding comes in. It's natural on this level of awareness to feed. But the higher you go in awareness, the less you will need that. So you can't just go from meat eater to prana eater. Like, it doesn't happen like that. Because I used to say that you would burn out. It's like you have this light bulb, and it's not the same as this huge light bulb. It's made for different current to run through it. So you have to increase in that awareness in order to, assimilate that current that flows through you. You see? So it takes time. For me personally, right now I'm a vegan, and many people will say, you can only eat raw foods because it's how blah blah blah. you have to think in terms of local and your environment and see what is balanced within that. You cannot go to extremes, because no extremes are good. We are here to anchor the consciousness of balance here on earth. It's in terms, like we were thinking with my beloved this week, is how, how much food would we get if we would just produce it on our own here in this local environment, what grows here, and what's the state here in the coldest months, like in the winter. You have to think about all the facts. If you think that there would be no exchange, no stores, no, those beautiful organic stores that can have everything, at the same time they're very expensive, but still it's like imported from somewhere else. So in terms of thinking, of considering all the facts, what would you really eat if you would be localized and producing things on your own? You have to think about that. And when you think about that, it's very different if you live in the colder climates or you live in the warmer climates. So it's not just about eating raw. It's about eating what is there locally, because I've been talking about this. Your body will always have, in your external reality, in your environment where you live, it will get there in that environment will be everything to support your body. You need to remember that. So for instance, the ones from Peru, they have maca, they have this, they make it from this plant. It's supposed to be very energizing, and I used to take this as well, like 2 years ago. But then, I heard that in Slovenia, a certain type of our vegetable is the same for our body here. It has the same effect than maca that Peruvians use. Because that plant grows on, for instance, you have like 3,000 meters or 4,000 meters of latitude, and it has different conditions. Your body is it's placed here for a reason. So think about that. Think about how would you feed your body as to the energy that is around you, because all food is energy. So when you think about all the facts through consciousness, through realizing that on your own, not just reading, what is healthy for you, or what is healthy for certain blood types. That's so much generalizing in there. Think about the truth, the essence of it. Why are you here in this environment, and why, for instance, if you look at the plant life or animal life, why everything is self-sustainable within, each other. We need to remember that state, because it's not just about us and, saying, I want to eat more light because then I'll have more light quotient, and then I'll be able to ascend higher. Still ego perception. It's still very much egocentric. We need to think about being, in a way, in flow with all nature, with all life. It's not just about how we feed to be able to intake more light. Of course, there's a part of it. But the more we shift in awareness, the more we realize that they're all fractions of life here. They're all equally important. It's not all about us humans. It's about all aspects, all colors, all layers of creation. So how to truly live the most organically that we can? Ask your higher guidance. You will be guided towards that. See your environment. That is why I always speak. It's so important to be connected to nature, because nature will give you those answers. When you will observe it, you will see how each and every fraction of nature is interconnected. How they exchange, their own food resources. For instance, my beloved gave me this great example. He said, everyone is so pro honey. Oh, honey is so, healthy because it's not like white sugar. But we don't even consider that the farmers who have bees, they take honey from bees and they feed them white sugar mostly. And I'm thinking, that's really right. We should start thinking like that. But people, mostly how they ask me questions is still about, self-sustainable. Self, me. Why I'm so guided to speak about these things and make my videos is about to make people consider about everything that is within the great I am. All life, all creation. Everything is a love story. Everything is equally important. And we need to start, producing our inner awareness in a way that we start unlocking it to get these answers. To get the full support of nature and our own I am to guide us in a way that everything will be in flow. No one will take energy from another. That won't be needed anymore, because this is what the golden age is about. It's not just about you being enlightened. It's about all aspects of light moving higher. Flowing through that density and reaching the realms of lesser density. So in terms of real ascension, it's not just about you ascending higher. It's about taking all that is around you with you. Do you see? So this is where diet is important, and this is why it's so important for us to shift gradually through this process, to start making changes in our food, so that all the external changes are aligned with it as well. Because once we make a change in our diet, everything else starts changing as well, because it's like this mosaic thing. You change one pattern and the whole pattern looks different. And one particle of a pattern and the whole pattern has changed. That's how big contribution we have. But when we do it consciously through awareness, not through the ego perception that wants to be a vegetarian because it's good for you, or because it's healthy, or you don't want to have cancer, or someone has told you and want to do the same because you still want to compare yourself to someone else. It truly is all about you, but only from a perception to start doing things, these changes from within you, to influence on all the other parts of that great puzzle with your own awareness and the shifts that you're making. The contribution can be immense if you really start making these conscious steps. So it's a gradual process, and in my previous video I've also been mentioning that it's not just about needing less food. Sometimes in this process, because we'll be receiving a lot of energy downloads, we'll need even more food to support our body. But it's good to eat vegetables, it's good to eat nuts that will really ground, like vegetables that grow in soil, like potatoes, beets, carrots, things like that, and certain nuts that can grow in soil, because that's the way you will ground things, because everything is energy. And when you think about in terms that you want to ground that energy that's going through you, and you feel kind of too hyper, you don't want to ground more, you'll need the food, because food is energy. If you consider it like, wow, thunder, if you consider it energy, then that energy of something that grows in soil will help you anchor that, ground that, your hyper mode, your download codes and things like that. When you start thinking through your own perception, everything will seem so easy. It's so simple when we remember. So keep remembering, and don't feel guilty if some days you will feel like you need to eat more, because this is what's happening on these days of increased solar activity or new alignments that are happening. There can be some very intense energies, and that's when we're guided to eat more. Sometimes, for instance, I go to the mountains, there's just so much prana there, I don't even need to eat. I eat a few nuts and fruits and that's it. Listen to your body. Be the best intuitive guide for your body, because the body is doing the same for you. Take care. Be blessed. Much love.